So as we turn now to sustainable branding, what does a brand mean? I have an example from personal life. Years ago, I was walking with my daughter, who was 2 at the time, early on a Saturday morning, and a truck went by, and she pointed at the truck very excitedly and yanked on my coat and said, "Daddy, Daddy, Haagen-Dazs, let's go get ice cream." So I thought, great, it's 9 on a Saturday, and I'm already being hit with an ice cream request. But upon reflection, I realized that my daughter, who's 2 at the time, and I'm a completely biased parent, I think she's very bright, couldn't read. So how then did she know that that truck was Haagen-Dazs? And the answer is branding. She knew from the logo and the colors that that meant ice cream, something delicious and something wonderful. So in part, sustaining your brand, I think, is sustaining the positive organic association that your stakeholders have with it, and protecting as much as is possible in a very challenging world, as Max outlined very nicely, from the challenges that companies are going to face increasingly in virtually every sphere in which they operate. What role do sustainable brands play in customer engagement, which was one of the notes on the outline for today? Well, you're engaging stakeholders to whom sustainability is important. So the success of your sustainability efforts is, how do you know if you succeeded, Professor Lincoln? I guess there are many different judges, and you have to understand that when you're doing your sustainability efforts. You often can feel in this area that no good deed goes unpunished, but that doesn't mean that you don't do these efforts nonetheless, because there are sound business reasons to do them. In supply chain management, sustainability, I think increasingly is about building through the supply chain, that is, supplier capacity to sustain the CSR standards of a company. Are you helping the suppliers have the ability to sustain the standards as opposed to measuring their compliance with them over and over again? And are you looking at reducing impact, reducing resource consumption, and increasingly looking at the beginning of the life cycle? Max talked about the end, but life cycle analysis, a cradle to cradle type of thinking. In investor relations, sustainable branding, there's some important developments in the notion of signing on to very important principles where environmental, social, and governance principles are part of the criteria by which loans are extended, by which investments are made, through things such as the Equator Principles and the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment, which Yoshi-san, I know, is involved with. And I think there, you've seen now that even private equity companies have signed on to these principles in a very big way. But again, the big challenge is less the signing on to the principles, but the successful integration of them into daily operations, and that's where we spend most of our time. And I think the bitter lessons that I referred to earlier, the mistakes, have been marketing on signing on to standards without working day-to-day hard to assess compliance with them. And I think that anyone who looks at these standards and considers all the challenges of businesses knows that if you look at any place on any day, there will be substandard conditions. So really the issue is, are you prepared to address these substandard issues?